Welcome back, everyone. We're diving into something pretty intense today. It's Corneliu Codreanu's For My Legionaries.
Ah, Codriani.
Yeah, the leader of the Romanian Iron Guard, a powerful and controversial figure from the early 20th
A
century.
time of a lot of change and turmoil in Romania.
Right. And this book, his autobiography, gives us a look inside his head, his beliefs, motivations, how he built the Iron Guard.
It can be a tough read at times. He doesn't shy away from anything.
Definitely. I mean, right off the bat, he's obsessed with this city. Ayasi calls it the eternal city of Romanianism.
Ayasi held a real symbolic power for him. He saw it as the heart of Romania.
Yeah, but also a city under attack, or at least that's how he saw it.
Right. He talks about this merciless Jewish invasion, which he believed was threatening Ayasi's Romanian identity.
It's like he uses Ayasi to represent Romania as a whole, a country he saw as being corrupted by outside forces.
That's a good way to put it. And this fear, this sense of threat, really shaped his whole worldview.
Yeah, and then there's this guy, Constantine Pancu, who Codriano clearly idolizes.
Panku was a working class guy, a plumber and electrician, but also this powerful speaker, a real firebrand.
Codriano describes him like some kind of folk hero, almost superhuman.
They shared this intense Romanian nationalism, this belief that the country needed to be protected from both communism and foreign influence.
They both believed in fighting for the working class, but always within this framework of Romanian nationalism.
Bamiu actually wrote a manifesto in 1919 calling for Romanian unity, warning against the dangers of outside forces.
It really foreshadows the kind of rhetoric that the Iron Guard would later become known for, this blending of workers' rights with nationalism.
Exactly. It was a powerful message, especially for people who felt like they were being left behind.
So Codriano goes off to university, and things start to get, well, more intense.
He becomes even more active in these national student groups. There were clashes with students they saw as Jewish or communist.
He talks about these fights, these efforts to keep Jewish students out of their organizations. And there were even attacks on newspapers.
Jewish-owned newspapers, which he saw as enemies of Romania. The rhetoric gets pretty ugly.
He actually includes excerpts from some of the articles that were circulating at the time, and they're filled with this vicious anti-Semitic language. It's really disturbing.
It shows how widespread these ideas were at the time. This was the environment that shaped Codrianu's thinking.
It's frightening to see how easily he absorbed this hate.
And it culminates in this event, the student plot of 1923. Codreanu and his group planned to assassinate several Romanian politicians.
Whoa, seriously, like actually kill them.
They saw these politicians as being responsible for the so-called Jewish problem, and they decided to take matters into their own hands.
That's intense. So what happened? Did they go through with it?
Luckily, no. The plot was foiled, but Codreanu ends up in Vacaresti prison.
Prison must have been quite an experience for someone like Codreanu.
It was a turning point for him. It didn't soften his views. If anything, it hardened them.
He had a lot of time to think, to stew in his anger, to develop his ideology even further.
He writes about the support he received from students and peasants while he was in prison. It reinforced his belief that he was on the right track.
So prison, in a way, prepared him for what was to come.
It gave him a platform. It made him a martyr in the eyes of his supporters, and when he got out, he was ready to build a movement.
And that movement was, of course, the Iron Guard, or as he first called it, the Legion of the Archangel Michael.
Yeah, he starts to build it almost immediately after he gets out of prison. It's remarkable how organized he was, how strategic his thinking was.
He wasn't just some angry guy shouting in the streets. He had a vision and a plan to make it a reality.
Right, and it starts with this place he calls the Christian Cultural Home. It was basically a work camp where students could go and do manual labor.
Manual labor, what was the point of that?
It was about connecting with the peasant class, who Codreanu saw as the backbone of Romania. And it was about instilling discipline, hard work, a connection to the land.
So it was more than just a physical thing. It was about shaping their character, their values.
Exactly. He was trying to create a certain kind of man, strong, disciplined, ready to sacrifice for the nation. And then you have the nest structure.
The nests.
Yeah, these were small groups, 3 to 13 men, each with a leader, kind of like a cell. It was a way to foster loyalty, obedience, a willingness to act.
Almost like a secret society within a society.
Each nest was governed by these 6 strict laws.
Yeah.
Discipline, work, silence, education, reciprocal help, and honor. You can really see how discipline and obedience were key for him.
It all ties back to this idea of creating the ideal Romanian man, ready to fight for the cause.
Right. But to really challenge the system, he knew he needed more than just these small groups. He had to mobilize the masses.
Oh, how did he do that?
He started organizing these public meetings, marches, using powerful imagery, emotional language, appealing to people's fears and frustrations.
He was a master propagandist. He knew how to work a crowd.
And one event that really highlights this is the planned march into Bessarabia. This region had been taken by the Soviet Union, and it was a major point of contention in Romania.
So he taps into this sense of national grievance, this idea that Romania had been wronged.
And he positions himself as the one who's going to fight for them, to reclaim what was lost. But the government banned the march. They saw it as a threat to their authority.
So another clash with the powers that be. How did Codreanu respond to that?
He was furious. He saw it as an attack on his right to free speech, proved that the government was afraid of him, afraid of the Iron Guard's growing popularity.
And this just fuels his fire even more, makes him more determined.
He ends up getting arrested again, charged with subversion. But he uses his trial as a platform to spread his message.
Turning a setback into an opportunity.
He was brilliant at that. He presented himself as a martyr, a victim of a corrupt system, and it resonated with people.
So even when he's facing legal troubles, he's still able to advance his agenda.
And this is where we start to see the real danger of Codreanu. He's not just a charismatic leader, he's a master manipulator. He knows how to twist events to his advantage, how to play on people's emotions, and how to exploit their fears.
Okay, let's dig into his ideology a bit more. What did he actually believe? What was this national revolution he kept talking about?
Well, he believed that Romania was in a state of decay, weakened by corruption, foreign influence, and of course the Jewish problem.
Right. He was obsessed with this idea of a Jewish conspiracy, that they were somehow responsible for all of Romania's ills.
His anti-Semitism is really central to his whole worldview. He saw Jewish people as parasites, exploiting the Romanian people, undermining their culture and values.
And his solution was to create this new Romania, purified, strong, unified. But how did he envision this new Romania being governed?
He rejected democracy outright. He saw it as weak, divisive, easily manipulated.
So what was his alternative?
He believed in a system of leadership based on selection and heredity. Basically, rule by an elite class chosen for their strength and virtue.
It sounds pretty authoritarian.
It definitely was. He believed that only the strongest and most capable individuals, those with a proven lineage, were fit to lead Romania back to greatness.
It's interesting how he tied this belief in a strong leader to his concept of the nation. He saw it as this almost mystical entity encompassing the dead, the living, and the unborn.
Yeah, his idea of the nation was very spiritual, very rooted in history and tradition. He believed that all Romanians were connected by this shared destiny, this eternal lineage.
So it was more than just a political ideology. It was almost like a religious faith.
It had that element for sure, and that's what made it so appealing to people. It offered a sense of belonging, of purpose, of meaning.
But as the Iron Guard grew, so did their willingness to use violence to achieve their goals. They weren't just talking about revolution anymore. They were actively challenging the state.
Yeah, and one event that really shows this is the dam building project at Fazani. Codreanu presented this as a grand demonstration of the Iron Guard's commitment to the Romanian people.
Like they were going to roll up their sleeves and actually build something for the good of the nation.
Exactly. It was supposed to be this big PR stunt, a way to show that they were more than just talk, but it turned into a complete disaster.
What happened?
Thousands of Legionnaires showed up, but they were totally unprepared. They lacked the proper equipment, the organization. It was chaos. Food shortages, disease outbreaks, fights with the police.
It sounds like a nightmare.
It was. And even though it was his own fault, Codreanu blamed the government.
Of course he did, always playing the victim.
He wrote this letter to the prime minister, accusing them of sabotaging the project, of persecuting the Iron Guard because they were a threat to their corrupt power.
So he spins this whole mess to his advantage, further fueling the resentment against the government.
He was a master of propaganda. And despite the failure at Masani, the Iron Guard's popularity continued to grow. But that growth came with a dark side. The movement was becoming more and more radical, more and more willing to resort to violence.
So the Iron Guard is gaining momentum, but facing this crackdown from the government, things are getting pretty tense.
Yeah, the stakes are definitely rising. And then this guy, I.G. Duca, becomes prime minister. He was not messing around.
Sounds like he was determined to take down the Iron Guard.
He went after them hard, called them anarchists, terrorists, even accused them of being connected to the Nazis.
Ah, so those rumors about Nazi ties start to swirl around.
Duca used those allegations to justify his crackdown, banned the Iron Guard, arrested their leaders, really tried to crush them.
Wow. So how did Kodurani respond to all this?
He was on the defensive, but he still tried to project this image of strength, of defiance.
Like a martyr for the cause.
Exactly. And it still worked on a lot of people. They saw him as this fearless leader standing up to a corrupt system.
But this kind of defiance can be dangerous, right? Especially in such a volatile political climate.
Oh, absolutely. By constantly pushing back against the government, Cudrano was playing a dangerous game. And then, in December of 1933, Duca is assassinated.
He was killed.
Yeah. Shot dead by a group of Iron Guard members?
Wow, that changes everything. What was Kodrianu's reaction to this? Did he condemn the killing?
It's complicated.
Yeah.
Publicly, he tried to distance himself from the assassins, said that the Iron Guard didn't condone violence.
Good.
But in his writings and in some private conversations, he praised them as heroes. He saw Duca as a tyrant who deserved to die.
So he's trying to have it both ways, condemning the violence while secretly celebrating it.
He knew that Duca's assassination could backfire on him, but he also saw it as an opportunity to further his cause. He hoped it would spark a revolution.
But it didn't quite work out that way, did it?
No. Duca's death shocked the country. The government cracked down even harder on the Iron Guard, and the movement was driven underground.
So Kodrianu's gamble backfired.
It did. His strategy of confrontation ultimately led to the Iron Guard's downfall.
Well, this has been a pretty intense deep dive. What can we take away from all this? What can we learn from Kodrianu and the rise and fall of the Iron Guard?
I think there are a lot of lessons here. On a personal level, it's a story about the dangers of extremism, of fanaticism.
Kodrianu was a charismatic leader, but he was also deeply misguided. His vision for Romania was built on hate and violence.
And his methods ultimately backfired. He destroyed the very thing he was trying to build.
It's a reminder that good intentions aren't enough. The ends don't justify the means.
Exactly. And on a broader level, Kodrianu's story highlights the fragility of democracy. It shows how easily a charismatic leader can exploit people's fears and frustrations to gain power.
It's a warning from history that we need to heed.
Absolutely. We need to be vigilant, to stand up for our values, to challenge extremism wherever we see it.
Well said. Thanks for taking us on this deep dive. It's been eye-opening, to say the least.
My pleasure. Always happy to explore the complexities of history.
And to our listeners, thanks for joining us. We'll see you on our next deep dive.